Hey guys, it's Anna here from Temple of Fitness. I wanted to just talk about how everyone seems to be saying that you have to get uncomfortable to grow. And tonight's Bible study that I was just on was about obedience to God and how our hearts are convicted when we're not following His ways, and that our consciences tell us and lead us in the direction towards following God. And we get uncomfortable for a certain reason when we're walking towards temptation instead of towards God. And it's uncomfortable because we get convicted and our hearts feel uncomfortable because we know we're not doing the right thing, and we discover where we're weak. We discover where we give into temptation. It doesn't feel good in the moment to be convicted of it, but how good is it that we get convicted, or someone calls us out, or hear the right message in church, or something just exposes itself as sin and we realize, I've been going in the way towards sin and not towards God. And that's what we want to focus on when we're talking about that it's uncomfortable to grow. It truly is. And we can definitely apply this to our physical fitness. We avoid hard work with caring for our bodies, with caring for our spirits, because we don't like being uncomfortable. We don't enjoy being convicted of not doing what is right. We don't enjoy the feeling of sin being exposed in our hearts. It doesn't feel good, and we want to feel good about everything we're doing. But when we're at war with our conscience and our spirits, it's revealed to us that we're not doing the right thing. And so it's the same with working out. We find out where we're weak. When we are working out and we're exercising, we don't always feel like a million bucks. We sometimes feel horrible. We sometimes feel like defeated, like this is hard. I'm not there yet, we say. And it's a struggle because we're finding out where we're weak and just how much work we have to do. And isn't it the same sometimes when we dig into God's word and when we sit in church and the pastor has just that message that hits our heart and convicts us? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to discover where we're weak in here. And do we sometimes avoid opening God's word or talking to that Christian friend or going to church because we're afraid it's going to be uncomfortable, and in our hearts we're convicted that we're not following the ways of God? We avoid that. And it's the same thing with exercise too. It's kind of a mirror image of it. We avoid the hard work because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to find out where we're weak. But there is so much joy in the conviction. There is so much goodness and so much fullness of God's promise to make us strong when we find out where we're weak. And we are to strive towards finding out where we're weak. We are supposed to desire that, actually, because that's when we discover how much we need to fall on God, and we recognize our need for God, and then how we can fall on Him to be strong again. We don't have the strength to live a life worthy of our calling as we're called to do, and to say no to temptation, to walk straight forward, not to the left, not to the right, as God says it. Look straight ahead, run the race, run to the prize. Don't get distracted by this world. Keep going. It's going to be hard, but keep going. We don't have the strength to do that on our own. We need Jesus. And we're convicted along the way, because when we get distracted going to the right, going to the left, get distracted by the world, and our conscience is dulled by this world because we surround ourselves with temptation and the ways of this world, and all of a sudden it seems okay and our conscience is dulled. But there's a part of us that knows, because God has implanted that truth in our hearts. God has implanted that. So we need to run towards Him. We need to strengthen our conscience. We want to find out where we're weak so we can be strong. We need to be in the Word, finding out where we're weak so that we can grow stronger. We can grow closer to Him. We listen to Colossians and Ephesians about the rules for godly living, and it can be kind of disturbing because we realize where we're so weak when we read through God's rules for a Christian household, as stated in Colossians chapter 3. And in Ephesians chapter 4 and chapter 5, being imitators as God and putting off slander and filthy language and sexual immorality, and being kind and compassionate, uplifting one another. Don't gossip, don't steal, don't compare yourself, don't desire things that aren't yours. There's so much truth and there's so much conviction, and we realize what we aren't supposed to do, but then God immediately leads us to what are we supposed to do and how beautiful our life is, how at peace, how much our relationships flourish when everything is about him. But first we have to find out where we're weak to know how we can be strong. We have to be convicted first so that we can realize where we need Jesus, which is in everything, but especially we all have weaknesses of the flesh, and we're convicted when we read God's word. And when we're in church and we hear that message that has to do with what's going on in our hearts, and we're convicted of that, we can walk away and we can change our ways with God's strength. And the same thing with our physical fitness. It's not comfortable. We find out where we're weak when we exercise. And my friend, do I know that I feel so weak in a lot of my exercises and a lot of my workouts with my permanent birth injury. It's so frustrating sometimes. It's frustrating because it's like, I should be stronger than this. This is so hard. Why is this so hard? And sometimes it makes you want to avoid doing it again because it was so uncomfortable. But after you do that workout, after you conquer it, you found out where you're weak, you go to bed that night and your body rebuilds stronger. Literally, your body is actually physically stronger because of how you tore down your body and found out where you're weak. It then immediately gets stronger overnight with your rest. And isn't it the same with God's word? We go in here and we're convicted of where we're wrong, and then we ponder on God's word and we're in it more and more, and we continue strengthening our conscience, strengthening our spirit and our relationship with God, and we are so strong because of where we were convicted. I find out, oh my goodness, I struggle so bad with this. God, I need you right here, and you make me strong immediately when I fall on you, and when I confess my sin to you, when I confess my weakness and rely on you for that strength to be better. So let's not avoid being convicted, mind or body. Let's not avoid the conviction of the Spirit. Let's not avoid the things that are hard, because when we do the things that are hard, that convict our hearts, and we find out where we're weak, we then are stronger, and that's such a beautiful thing.